Sunday Live with Jeff Koinange and Olive Barrows.
It is the second Sunday in February. Welcome to Sunday Live. We have a great show for you today, including some very disturbing news from the USA, right? Our main topic for today is USAID or USAID.
But at least where PEPFAR is concerned, there is a 90-day waiver in place. We'll be getting into the details of what commodities programs are still supported until the 19th of April and what is not.
But the numbers?
Yes, actually, the U.S. Department of State stated that in 2024, we received 83.5 billion shillings.
Good Lord.
Yes.
That's what it took to build the Nairobi Expressway, you know that?
Oh, good to know.
About 80 billion shillings. And on the show tonight, we have a guest, Dr. Ruth Leibont-Masha. She's the CEO, National Syndemic Disease Control Council.
Formerly known as?
The AIDS Council.
Yes, formerly the National AIDS Control Council.
Yes.
Yeah. So don't let syndemic confuse you.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of people are going to be out of work.
Well,
people are going to be out of work the next few weeks.
We'll hear from the reports.
Very disturbing.
It is.
Let's start tweeting. At Koinange Jeff.
At O Barrows at Citizen TV Kenya.
The hashtag is Sunday Live. Sunday Live begins right now.
Tonight.
Probing ward murder at KNH. 24 individuals, including 12 patients, questioned over the killing of Gilbert Kinyua at Kenyatta National Hospital.
Hata wakipatia watu IDs, hao ambao wamepatiwa ndio watawafukuza kwanza.
Why is it that only Somalis, because they border Somalia, being subjected to what they have been calling vetting?
Extra vetting ban. Leaders divided over Ruto's decree banning screening of Northeastern ID applicants.
Dreams on hold. Thousands of children from vulnerable families risk dropping out of schools as the effects of funding freeze from USAID starts to bite.
Between supporting and opposing. Confusion in ODM as leaders divided over whether or not to remain in government.
And welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Njoki Shege. Now, 24 individuals, including 12 patients, have been questioned over the murder of a patient at the Kenyatta National Hospital. Others who have been grilled by the DCI detectives from the DCI include nurses and watchmen on duty.
The detectives are also trying to establish why the hospital CCTV was switched off. KNH acting CEO Dr. William Sigilai has intimated that the murder may have been carried out by someone from inside the facility, as there was no evidence that the assailant was an outsider. Mary Moki has the details.
2 days since the chilling murder of Gilbert Kinyua, who was killed while admitted as a patient in Ward 7B, the hospital has broken its silence and addressed the intrigues surrounding the fatal stabbing of the patient, the second such attack to occur in the facility. The hospital's acting CEO, Dr. William Sigilai, says there was no lapse in security on the day of the murder, adding that nurses on duty conducted routine rounds in the ward that had 54 patients at the time of the incident, adding that all seemed well.
On Friday morning, at approximately 6 a.m. or thereabout, Mr. Kinyua was found with his face covered with a blood-stained sheet. The nurse discovered that this person was motionless with a deep cut on the frontal aspect of his neck. The area was immediately cordoned off as a crime scene, and the DCI was notified.
The hospital, which finds itself in the same predicament it was in 10 years ago when another patient was similarly stabbed in November of 2015, could however not explain how the CCTV at the country's largest national hospital was not working. 24 individuals, who include patients, nurses on duty and watchmen, have recorded statements with the detectives probing the murder.
KNH management is deeply saddened by this tragic event and remains committed to transparency and accountability throughout the investigation process.
While seemingly admitting that the murder was likely committed by someone within the facility, Dr. Sigilai says there is no proof that the assailant came from outside and bypassed the 4 nurses who were on duty that night. The murder of Kinyua, a patient who was immobilized and completely reliant on nurses for round-the-clock care following his diagnosis of a neurological nerve damage, raises more questions as to how nurses manning that ward failed to hear his screams for help, and how the assailant left the room without the other patients in the ward raising any alarm.
At this point in time, we actually do not have evidence that anybody walked in and committed a crime and committed the said crime. We know for a fact that the patient was murdered in the ward. There is every chance that this person did not walk in the manner you've described.
The investigating officers have also forbidden the hospital from discharging any of the patients admitted in the wards next to the one where Kinyua was murdered. Mary Mwoki, Citizen TV.
The debate continues to intensify over President William Ruto's decision to abolish a requirement for extra vetting of residents in border counties seeking national identity cards.
That's right. Now, a section of the opposition led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka has opposed it, with the opposition claiming it is a strategy by the president to fix votes in the 2027 presidential elections. MPs allied to the president have defended the president's move. We get more from our very own Willie Lusige.
Just a few days after President William Ruto annulled the 60-year-old requirement for residents of border areas to undergo extra screening before obtaining ID cards during his visit to Wajir County.
Leo nimesema hiyo maneno ya vetting iondolewe.
The decision has elicited reactions, with the opposition led by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka alleging that it's part of President Ruto's plan to secure more votes and turn the region into his stronghold ahead of the 2027 presidential election.
Wanafikiria wanaweza kuandikisha kura hapa na pale, kuwapatia watu IDs. I want to assure you, hata wakipatia watu IDs, hao ambao wamepatiwa ndio watawafukuza kwanza.
Speaking at the official opening of the Wiper Democratic Movement office in Malindi, Kilifi County, Kalonzo says the decision will not save Kenya Kwanza.
Because kila mtu anaumia kama yule mwingine. And the example of Isiolo was amazing.
The church has also joined the conversation, with the religious leaders led by PCEA Church warning that the decision could jeopardize national security.
That decision needs a lot of care for it to be applied. It may cause us a lot of challenges going forward. We hope it's not a political decision. If it's a policy decision, let it be fully explained why they thought it can work.
However, leaders aligned with President William Ruto, led by Majority Leader in Parliament Kimani Ichung'wah, have criticized those opposing the move, asserting that all Kenyans should have the right to receive ID cards without enduring lengthy questioning processes.
Those who are pained, I only say sorry to them, because the President and the government of Kenya must render services to all Kenyans.
Hata hao wahubiri ambayo wanaomba kila siku, wanasema shetani ashindwe kila siku. So wanasema tuache mambo ya ukabila.
Mandera Governor Mohamed Adan Khalif has downplayed concerns that the move will threaten national security, saying debate on the issue should not be used to divide the country.
Kurias they border Uganda. Na Kuria walingine wanaboda pande wa Tanzania. Why is it that only the people of this region border Somalia being subjected to what they have been calling vetting?
Willie Lusige, Citizen TV.
All right, in other news, detectives at the Juja police station in Kiambu County are investigating the mysterious death of a 19-year-old college student whose body was found on the ground floor of an apartment building near JKUAT under unclear circumstances.
The body of Belinda Kayanga Wekesa was discovered by locals, lying dead with visible injuries. Police say they are probing the circumstances that led to her death to ascertain if she committed suicide or she was pushed by someone. As part of the probe, police have in custody a male friend who was with the deceased at the time of the incident. Investigators will be seeking to detain the boyfriend for investigation purposes as they wait for an autopsy to ascertain the cause of death. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has announced plans to unveil a new political party in May 2025, aimed at rallying Mount Kenya voters to oppose President William Ruto in the 2027 elections.
That's right. Gachagua revealed that he has held extensive consultations in Amonyoro with leaders from all parts of the country, confident that his new party will attract a significant number of leaders and warning of an impending mass exodus from UDA party and the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. Now, he insists he will keep the name of the party under wraps for what he has termed as strategic reasons until the official launch in May.
This move sets the stage for a potential political shakeup in the lead-up to the 2027 elections.
For strategic reasons, I will not announce the name of the party today.
Okay.
But the party is ready and is a good party with a good constitution. Everything is done. That is what is remaining. But we shall launch the party in a very colorful ceremony in Nairobi at a venue to be announced so that we can all come together from the whole country. From there is all systems go.
Still in politics, and the split in the ODM party widened further as leaders who are opposed to the broad-based government claimed or clashed with their counterparts who are supporting the arrangement.
During an ODM meeting in Kakamega, leaders opposed to the handshake came to the defense of the party Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, who has been leading the Not Too broad-based campaign in the party. Emmanuel Too has the details.
The event, which brought together ODM leaders from the Western Kenya region, saw the simmering cracks in the ODM party widen as the leaders differed on the decision by the ODM party to work with President William Ruto's government. Those opposing the political marriage first to draw the first blood.
Itafika wakati baba ametoka kule AU, tutakuja hapa na party leader muwe tayari kutueleza are we in the government or we are not. If you don't do that, you are going to end up with two ODM. You will have ODM in government and ODM in opposition.
It is also fraudulent. Mkono huu wa kushoto tunasema we are working with Ruto. Na hii mkono wa kulia tunasema we are not working with Ruto. Mungu awabariki.
As those on the opposing camp also returning fire in equal force.
Wewe bado unalia, mimi lazima nikuwe nini, ukuwe nini? My friends, let's be serious. ODM is our party. It's not your mother or father's party. Let's be sincere.
The situation forcing the leadership of the party, led by the national chairperson Gladys Wanga, to intervene before the event could spiral out of control.
Tukauliza, what is our position as ODM on these matters of the broad-based and the rest? Na tumesema mambo matatu. Kwanza, tumesema ya kwamba sisi kama chama cha ODM ni chama a distinct party, and we are going to strengthen ourselves because the purpose of any political party is to capture power.
Mheshimiwa William Ruto, sisi kama chama hatuwezi ingia katika UDA. UDA imekufa.
Imekufa, haijakufa. some of the national officials of the party coming to the defense of the ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, who has been leading an onslaught against the proponents of the broad-based government within ODM.
So Edwin Sifuna is somebody we have full confidence in, and I'd like you at Wananchi to give him full support. As Secretary General what? ODM.
Umesikia baba akikomplaini juu ya Sifuna? Have you ever heard baba complaining? Have you ever heard Anyang' Nyong'o complaining? Have you heard Wanga complaining?
The recent arrangement with the Kenya Kwanza, which saw 5 cabinet secretaries allied to the ODM party appointed to cabinet, has split the orange into 2, with Sifuna, ODM deputy party leader Simba Arati, and other young parliamentarians leading the no side, while the pro-government honchos, led by the National Assembly Minority Leader Junet Mohammed and the CS for Mining Ali Hassan Joho, leading the other faction. The upcoming AU Commission election slated for next week is set to complicate things further within ODM and promises to widen the rift further should the former Prime Minister exit the local political stage. ODM will be celebrating 20 years since its formation, with the event slated for 28th of this month in Busia County. Emmanuel Toh, Citizen TV.
On to our topic of the evening. We're calling it USAID, the Casualties Report.
Did you see the 7 p.m. title?
I did.
Ntikiso. Was it USAID? Is it USAID or is it USAID?
People say both, huh? People say both. I hear a lot of people saying USAID, a lot of people say USAID. So,
okay.
Yeah, both words. Tomato, tomato.
All right. The education of girls in Kisumu, sponsored through the American government's PEPFAR project, now hangs in the balance as the effects of the U.S. president's freeze on foreign assistance come into effect.
That's right. Now, the project is one of many that also include the provision of sanitary towels to vulnerable and needy girls. And as our Laura Otieno reports, the aid freeze has also awakened fears of an increase in the cases of gender-based violence in the region. Take a listen.
Some of them are also HIV. At this hall in Kisumu's Nyalenda estate, a group of adolescent girls have shown up for their weekly sessions. Some teenage mothers clutch their babies close, while some are lost in deep thought over what the future holds. For the last 3 years, these girls aged between 10 and 24 have been gathering here every Sunday as a social support group. This table that would normally have sanitary towels to be distributed after the 3-hour session has a lonely box of condoms as the remaining space gathers dust. These are beneficiaries of a project dubbed Dreams that had revived their hope for a better life, which is now slowly unfolding into a nightmare.
Kuna wale wenye wamekuwa affected, wamekuwa kaenda hizo mashule, they were sponsored. But sasa venye kulikuwa na hiyo confusion, some have to go back home and they had very brighter dreams. So their dreams somehow have been cut short.
The PEPFAR-funded Dreams project was founded in 2014 to cater to the increasing new HIV infections among adolescent girls and young women across 15 countries in Africa. According to the United States Department of State, Kenya received a total of 12 billion shillings between 2016 and 2019 for the project, reaching more than 350,000 adolescent girls and young women across 7 counties. The roster on this wall showing how roles were split among the girls, where they took turns to peer educate on issues including sexual and reproductive health and counseling. However, with Dreams off the table, the future is bleak for these young girls and adolescent women.
Vitu kama sanitary towels hatungeikosa. Kitambo ilikuwa like a challenge kidogo, but hapa katikati through the funding ungepata like most of the girls they have access to this. We also had pad banks where there were pads kept. So akikosa hii itabidi maybe atafutie kwa mtu ama mtu amwambie sikuje kwangu ndo nikupatie kitu kidogo uende utafute hiyo pad. You see that, and that may lead to baby GBV.
Similarly, sanitation projects have also taken a hit. In 2022, USAID penned a 3 billion shilling sanitation and menstrual hygiene deal covering 8 counties in Western Kenya, including Kisumu, Kakamega, and Migori. The USAID Western Kenya sanitation project was scheduled to run for 5 years and was poised to not only support access to menstrual hygiene products and services, but also sustainable management of sewerage. The freeze by President Trump throwing a spanner in the works for the affected counties.
We risk having some of the communicable diseases that are associated with poor sanitation. And this basically includes dysentery, things like cholera, typhoid. It's a huge blow because counties have to look for where to get this money.
The social impact of the executive order by U.S. President Donald Trump is already causing jitters among millions of Kenyans, especially in the rural and informal settlements. Sanitation and economic empowerment projects have already been put on the line, with various stakeholders calling on both levels of government to enhance investment in order to avert the looming crisis. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
Now, the effects of the decision by U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to pause all U.S. foreign assistance funded by or through the State Department and U.S. agencies for international development, USAID, has begun to bite.
With thousands of people living with HIV missing critical drugs, while hundreds of community health promoters are rendered jobless. Our reporter Gatete Njoroge spent time in Kibra and shared in the anxiety being felt by the vulnerable families despite the U.S. government's 19-day waiver for delivery of life-saving HIV care and treatment.
Benta Agola strolls to her home in Kibra after attending a church service. Spiritual nourishment for the mother of 6 is part of her normal Sunday routine. A jovial Agola has lived with HIV for the last 24 years. However, the events of the last 2 weeks has left her disturbed, not sure of what the future holds, as U.S. President Donald Trump administration is hell-bent to turn her life upside down, with plans to shut down U.S. aid.
As an individual, USAID has been part of my life from the word go. If it were not for them, then I wouldn't have lived to tell a story.
But that story she fears will change soon if her visit to the clinic on Thursday is anything to go by.
I expected to get drugs for 3 months. I was given for 2 weeks. I was told they're afraid they might run out of stock. And people are coming to clinic next month can miss. They're still waiting for government to directives and to stock their pharmacies.
Benta, who knew about her status back in 2000 while expectant, says during that time there was little information about the virus. She accredits USAID for providing funds which ensured her treatment and care. Benta says as a result of the good care she received, she gave birth to 2 more children who through the support program did not contract the virus.
To me, I never knew it. One day we'll woke up one day and then we are told that it has been scrapped. It shook me to the core. I didn't know this will happen. Because now me, I'm empowered. I have all the information. How about this child that is, the mother just conceived and the mother is positive? Where will she get the information? Where will she get the empowerment? We'll take her through the process until she gives birth to this baby.
These are some of the benefits that she fears many will lose if the U.S. government continues with its push to shut down USAID. Benta says the support goes beyond care and treatment.
My kids have gone through school. I am not employed. If not for the USAID, my kids were sponsored. That's why they were in school and even able to graduate. Because these days you don't depend on relatives. Yeah, that's why it has really shaken me. If it's withdrawn, the services then becomes withdrawn, then I don't know what will happen.
Jane Akinyi is a community health promoter in Kibra. She understands better the effects of the shutdown, having been informed that her contract to offer support services to over 100 children living with HIV will expire end of this month.
Wakitoa OVC program, defaulters tutakuwa na defaulters. VL zao hazitakuwa accurate. Yes. Wengine watakuwa na high copies, even watoto. Aya, na what is the effect? Virus ikiwa mingi ama VL ikiwa juu, huyu mtoto anaweza kuwa na meningitis, anaweza kuwa na TB.
She says there is need for the US government to rescind the decision, as the ripple effect will be major for countries with struggling economies, as care and treatment goes hand in hand with economic empowerment for the affected families.
Unaona field ya HIV, the docket of HIV, uwezi ukafanya hii na uachi hii. Ningeomba tu vile tunaona tunasikia tutapata usaidizi isije ikakatika, kwa sababu tunataka watoto wale wanakuja nyuma yetu pia wapate hizo mahuduma.
The United States government in a communication on Thursday stated that PEPFAR supported life-saving HIV care and treatment, and prevention of mother-to-child transmission services will resume as soon as possible for a period of 90 days.
Nikivaa hii.
Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Yes. The impact of the drastic changes carried out by the Donald Trump administration on the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID or USAID, continue to be felt in Kenya and beyond.
That's right. Now, Kenya is ranked 5th highest beneficiary of U.S. assistance and stands to be impacted by these changes affecting the 60 years of USAID in Kenya. We get more from our very own Brenda Wanga.
For 60 years, Kenya, alongside tens of other countries across the globe, have been dependent on aid from the American government through USAID. The source of those funds has now been abruptly shut, leaving hundreds of governmental and non-governmental organizations in limbo. USAID was born in the United States during the administration of the then Democrat President John F. Kennedy during the Cold War.
USAID was founded in 1961 to be the primary U.S. foreign assistance agency for the United States. It works in over 80 countries around the world presently and manages a budget of around $40 billion.
Over the years, USAID has worked to promote global stability, counter the Soviet influence, and support U.S. foreign policy through humanitarian efforts. The initiative with funds have played a key role in combating the HIV and AIDS epidemic, providing emergency food aid, supporting democratic governance, and fostering economic growth in developing nations.
Our goal is to help save lives through humanitarian response and to help promote economic development and well-being through programs in health and education, social services, as well as then to improve food security and agriculture, to promote clean energy, and to preserve the environment.
Last year alone, Kenya was a beneficiary of some 84.1 billion shillings to more than 230 institutions for the activities relating to its core functions. Amongst those outfits that received substantial amounts of money included the World Food Programme, who got 15.6 billion shillings, the Agriculture Cooperative Development at 5 billion shillings, Catholic Relief at 2.7 billion shillings, World Vision 2.3 billion shillings, Liverpool VCT 2.1 billion shillings, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital 2 billion shillings, Amref's Health 1.5 billion shillings, Mission for Essential Drugs and Supplies 751 million shillings, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops 280 million shillings, and KMTC 153 million shillings, amongst others. Other organizations received a combined 8.3 billion shillings in funding. Cumulatively, Kenya has received 1.26 trillion shillings as aid from USAID from 2001 to 2024, the bulk of which has gone to HIV/AIDS interventions, emergency response to drought and floods, maternal and child health and food security programs.
First item that President Trump is signing is the rescission.
Trump government's changes in the administration of the Foreign Aid Agency is set to alter how the world superpower exercises its soft power and the impact it has on the lives of millions who depend on it. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Force of the world.
The repercussions of that are going to be felt for months, if not years, huh?
You know, between October of last year and September of this year, we were meant to receive 43 billion shillings in PEPFAR funding. Right. That has to do with HIV care and treatment. So we have somebody who will tell us how all of this has impacted operations, programs in the country that deal with HIV care and treatment.
And that somebody is Dr. Ruth Laibon Masha. She's the CEO of the National Syndromic Disease Control Council. She'll be with us after the break. Keep tweeting at Kananga Jeff.
Joe Burrows at Citizen TV Kenya.
Hashtag Sunday Live. Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back in the meantime. Coming up. Coming up, what 84 billion shillings program funding freeze means to Kenya.
Sometimes I need a fragrance to keep me calm, stays fresh in the heat and feels elegant into the night, lasting longer than expensive perfumes. New Downy, lavender calm, sunrise fresh and sweet elegance, freshness that inspires confidence.
How profitable and lucrative is agriculture? 1.5 years ago, we met Eva Gashoki, who had 30 acres of land and a French beans, and she was exporting about 2 tons every week to the international market. 18 months later, and she has increased her acreage of land to 50 acres and quadrupled her exports. Find out more on how she's making boss moves in the space of agriculture this Monday, only on Kenya's Gold.
I'm getting to a place where when you hear agriculture,
you think Eva Gashoki.
There you go.
All right.
Great yummy taste, gotta hack it. I spread bread, pate nguvu, gotta pack it. Napaka nyweki design ya mokoro. Blue Panda, Juni natural cocoa. 5 vitamins, una grow plus ni tam nani. One by one, tuna flow with the energy. Dance to the beat, feel the adrenaline. Vibes ni polite. Step into the motion. Tuna hack snack na ki blue band choco for your growth.
Lakini vile hii ekonomi imetufinya, ilinibidi kubadilisha sabuni nikatumia ingine rahisi. Bala, ilibidi nioshe kila kitu mara 2. Sikuwa na otherwise, nikarudia Ariel.
Ariel, usafi bora kwa mwosho mmoja tu.
Treat your loved one to a magical Valentine's escape from February 12th to 17th, 2025. Experience stunning views at Dubai Frame, visit Dubai Creek Harbour, explore Miracle Garden, enjoy a desert safari and Marina Dao cruise with dinner, and a romantic Valentine's dinner at Al Dawar Revolving Restaurant. This unforgettable getaway, including visa, starts at $1,120 per person sharing. Book now. Lipa Pole Pole. Visit viewtravel.com, call or WhatsApp 0703 254 254. View Travel. Dream. Explore. Discover.
Of course, Blue Band is amazing on toast. Duh. But did you know there's more?
Blue Band can do your topping and your frying and stir frying and mixing. Blue Band for stewing, baking sauces, also grilling and toasting. Nice in matoke and ugali and tilapia. That's right, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. Tasty, crispy. Want a bite? Mmm. So yummy every time with omega-3 and omega-6 vitamins all for free. We use it anytime with healthy. I'll be cooking up a storm for my family.
Whenever you fly to space or take your first step as baby, SoftCare always stays with you.
New SoftCare Space Series is rooted from space technology. Keeps you dry and comfortable for 12 hours long. Offers you the most effective protection during your space journey.
SoftCare. Protect your leap.
Maisha yanaimarika kupitia Petans Driving School and Computer College. Mafunzo yetu ya driving ni ya hali ya juu. Jisajili leo kwa kutumia simu yako *483*4#. Tutembelee Nairobi Capital Center hapo Ambassador, Petans Plaza Kiambu Town na kwingineko. Piga simu leo 0721328383.
It is exactly 35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. On to our topic of the evening, USAID.
Yes, I'm going to set the stage because we have with us in studio Dr. Ruth Laibon-Marsha. She is a public health expert and she also heads the National Syndemic Disease Control Council. So we've been talking about a 90-day waiver that came into effect on February the 6th for HIV care and treatment, right? So what does it cover, this waiver? Because there's a lot of panic, of course. Will services, will medicines continue to be provided? So let's begin with what procurement remains in place. That is procurement of HIV drugs, test kits, viral load tests, lab equipment for clinical monitoring, TB prevention and treatment drugs, as well as medication for opportunistic infections. And then also as part of this 90-day waiver, there will be HIV testing for people diagnosed with TB, prevention of mother-to-child transmission and HIV-exposed infant testing, retesting during pregnancy and breastfeeding, as well as partner testing. Now, we also have as covered under the 90-day waiver, counseling and treatment literacy, adherence support, nutrition support for malnourished persons living with HIV, tracing and return to care, as well as post-exposure prophylaxis. Also, as part of this 90-day waiver, we'll have pre-exposure prophylaxis remain, and that is for pregnant and breastfeeding women, distribution of condoms to pregnant, breastfeeding women and their partners, as well as postnatal prophylaxis for high-risk infants. Then for TB screening for persons living with HIV, TB preventive therapy for persons living with HIV. This I learned today, cervical cancer and pre-cancer lesion treatment for women living with HIV. Related administrative expenses is also covered under the 90-day waiver. What is not covered, Jeff, is people other than pregnant breastfeeding women who may be at high risk of HIV infection or were previously initiated on a PrEP option cannot be offered PEPFAR-funded PrEP during this pause of U.S. foreign assistance or until further notice. So this, I suppose, is like sex workers, people in same-sex relationships, but I'm no expert. We have an expert. She'll explain.
She's in the house, Dr. Ruth.
Yes, she is in the building. What else is not covered is population-based HIV surveys, violence against children surveys, program-based HIV surveillance, community-led monitoring information systems, planning and targeting for the 2026 financial year.
Good Lord. Dr. Marsha, looks like this is a death sentence in a way.
Is it? I don't know. Let me ask you, is it?
Well, people are going to suffer.
I just want to probably answer that question differently. I think it's important for us to appreciate where we are today. And we are not where we were in 1990s, for example, when we got a PEPFAR program, 1994. So you have a couple of things working for us. One is that we have the capacity to actually predict and know where new infections are coming from. You've got an expertise. We also have institutions that we never had with the capacity that understand the global market, and that institution is KEMSA. If you look at across all the countries, I chair 35 countries across the world, and we were discussing this issue and the impact of some of these changes. And most countries don't have what we have. We have a functional supply chain institution that has access to global market, but also understand the entire procurement process. Then again, when you look at our Kenya, how we do our products, for example, the antiretroviral drugs, we have one single pipeline, meaning that we do a forecasting and quantification and say next year we need drugs and commodities for testing and diagnostics worth 28 billion. Like, for example, that's what we had planned for this financial year. And in that forecasting, we also put for ourselves about 6 months what we call buffer. Now, what happens is that we look at the resources of funds. One is the government. The next one is the Global Fund for HIV, TB, and Malaria, and then PEPFAR. And when we speak about PEPFAR, we speak about PEPFAR and the affiliated agencies, CDC, USAID, USDOD, and PISCO. Everybody who works for the PEPFAR program, from US government comes and coordinated under PEPFAR. So when they communicate what they're giving to us, especially in terms of commodities, they talk about it as one. So if you look at this particular financial year, what did we have committed under PEPFAR for HIV products? It's about, if you look at the dollar exchange rate, you get near 10 billion Kenya shillings. And that's about 28% of what we needed. And then the other percentage was being covered by the Global Fund for HIV, TB, and Malaria, and the other is the Kenya government. But even within that, we had a gap of about 12 billion Kenya shillings for the commodities to make sure that the supply chain is really what we need. When we talk about the supply chain for antiretroviral medicine, we look at it in different ways. We look at it from what does the patient have? They have a 90 days dose. What is at the facility? And then what is going to be at the central warehouse, which is now where we talk about KEMSA. So we look at it that way. It's not just about drugs in one specific area. So what we do, we use data then to manage when each of these drug supply will be brought to the country. So for example, if government money was to bring the first consignment, which probably would be a 5-month supply, then we say government of Kenya money will be used between this, because also we don't bring all the drugs at once, we bring them first. So what the first time before the waiver came, the first thing we had to do is to look at what options do we have. Because HIV is a global security challenge. It's not just health, it's a security issue, because there is no ARV for the poor and the rich. Yeah. It is one pot. So what we've had going for us is that ability to be able to say how we space these things out. However, I don't want to underestimate the impact of the US government in the HIV response, because we know that they have contributed significantly to where we are today.
Yeah, but Dr. Ari, the taps have been shut off. They've shut off the taps.
Did it, I'm curious, did it come as a shock to you?
Yeah.
So I think on the 1st of December, we launched something we called operational plan for country readiness pre and post 2030 on the AIDS response. And that thinking was around a roadmap that takes us to 2030. The shocker is when it comes too soon. You know, when you're planning to walk a journey with a partner slowly by slowly, it was too soon. Secondly, PEPFAR program gives us about 41,000 healthcare workers. 41,500. They spent about 17 billion. That's what they are estimated to spend in Kenya this financial year, just at the HIV program alone. And these included clinicians, included up to the level of auxiliary services. We include mentor mothers and peer educators. Now, when that is disrupted at once, it means that you wake up in the morning and you find yourself thinking about how will I open facility X? And I want to say that it's not just easy to fold up things immediately and start reorganizing your own facilities, getting another clinical person to go to stand in for these people, because this is an investment. These are just not clinicians. These are highly technical services of people who have been trained over the years and who are very strong within building our system. One of the other elements that PEPFAR has been very strong on is the data systems. And they've supported us across the country to ensure that we get the data from the patient level to the lab level to the pharmacy, and bring it together. What the National Syndemic does, we put it together, and then we have visibility of what is happening in the country. So that was another area that, of course, would be a shocker for you if you woke up in the morning and realized that that tap would dry. But having said that, I must say that one thing that is going for us, which probably we may not see today, is the SHA. SHA and the affiliated health sector reforms are actually part of the sustainability agenda. They may not be perfect now, but if we lacked any form of any insurance system that allows for equity, that allows for the poor to pay for the rich to pay for the poor, or for the sick to be paid for by the healthy, then we would have no system or structure to see how we are going to get these programs as we moved on 2030. The other reform that was very useful for us was the reform of thinking about forming the primary healthcare networks, because that is where the Americans have been strong with us, giving non-government organizations. And by the way, we can't write them off, because the healthcare system, the way it's designed, you have to work government, you have to work private sector, you have to work with the communities. For the HIV response, minus people living with HIV, you have a shallow response. You know, today when someone gets diagnosed with HIV, it's not just that like any other disease, I must tell you. It becomes a personal crisis. Sometimes you ask someone, who do you want to call in your family? They don't have anyone to call. They just go blank. And so what we've done over the years is to create another kind of people. These are people living with HIV. Those who are diagnosed before this new person, and we put them and they are supported so that when we say, they tell someone, oh, by the way, I was there one day. And when I was diagnosed, I spoke to so-and-so and life became better. So that is another industry there that they've helped us.
Dr. Tari, real quick, I don't want to say you are in denial right now, but what happens after 90 days?
So this is where I was coming to get to. So right now, what we have is what we call disruption. And it's disruption, it's big. For example, the waiver you've seen, it's selecting some population. From the 41,000 staff that were with us, we now anticipate probably those who are working will be about 12%, based on what you can see the program has hived off. Most importantly is the impact on prevention. As you can see, the entire prevention program is off the table for 90 days. Someone has to pick that up. Yeah. We also must admit that although people may think that some of these communities, we've been working with sex workers, men who have sex with men, people who inject drugs. If we let it go today, it will be disastrous for the country. So even within that 90 days, we have to think about who is this person who is going to provide opiate substitution therapy in a clinic, because that is not funded anymore. Are we going to let the communities that are at high risk to go away from the system, or are we going to integrate them slowly and with an understanding? Because once they get stigmatized, they go underground. You lose your sex workers today, they are not on antiretroviral treatment, then you have another disaster. So I want to say it's big in that way, because you have the entire system disrupted. So then what is the opportunity right now? It is the opportunity for us now to quickly put our house together. Because if we don't come and cooperate between citizen and government, that we decide that as much as it's the government that is actually trying to help us look at this, even at the individual level, we begin to see prevention as a personal agenda. That is one thing the citizen must help us to do. Then on the other side, the government is to quickly reorganize ourselves, to begin to see how do we structure this health system that has been supported over the years by someone, giving us all these necessary inputs that we required. Technology that was fantastic, you know, technical people that we cannot afford to lose the entire 41,000. We must begin to think about, these are experts. They are Kenyans, by the way. They are professors, they are scientists, they are epidemiologists. We have to start thinking about what can we probably wait for this 19th of April with. Can we wait for them with something on the table and say, maybe we need a couple of them? And we were anticipating to see, like, if we put about 3.9 billion on the table, we can see how many of them can be quickly given maybe short-term contracts to stay in the health sector. So it's big. I don't want to deny. But what I can say is that because of the way the supply chain has been organized, we don't anticipate that we'll come to a place where we say there are no ARVs, because it's a public good. And this conversation we've had with the parliamentary committee we've been having, it's not like we're having it today. When this hit countries such as South Africa, you look at South Africa, 80% of the entire public good, which is the antiretrovirals and the medicines, are taken care of by the government. So when such a disruption happened, then they have smaller things to deal with. So for us, it's that we have to think about what must we do today. And the cabinet secretary did set up what we call a ministerial crisis management team. And the one question that we're putting by next week is that we are working like if we don't know what happens on the 19th. So we are going to be saying the first thing is business continuity. No. And the business continuity is saving lives. Jeff, you cannot afford to interrupt HIV treatment. No. Because even within a week, it would not just be impacting on the person, it would impact on the entire public health system. And
infections from 15 to 24, right?
That was a concern in the last report you released, World AIDS Day 2024.
Yes, and
how do you bring them down now?
Now, and that's why I was saying that, for example, one of the programs that has been dropped during these 90 days is the DREAMS. And it was, for example, focusing on these girls. If you look at Homa Bay County, where we have a high infections, Kisumu, we had this DREAMS program going where the girls could continuously get education. So we have to think differently. We have to think, what other infrastructure do we have? Jeff, we have to stop denying that we cannot stand on a moral pedestal right now and refuse to teach our children whichever sector we can do that business, including the education sector. We must reflect and say that if this is where education was happening, what happened to the gap? Because treatment is easy, it's a pill. But prevention is more difficult because you're working with people. We also must not forget sexual violence cases. And as you can see, one of the drug that we've been using even for key population, which is our sex workers, is what we're saying pre-exposure prophylaxis. So we kept them negative. Now there's a directive that you don't use any of their money to support any other population other than pregnant and breastfeeding women and their partners. Again, you must think about that. However, I must say that we don't even know how we can separate that. We don't have drugs labeled as PEPFAR. For us as Kenya, when you bring the drugs, you put them in the pot. And the money is what you come with, and we have one single supply chain. Even when the PEPFAR money is procured through meds, we still have a contract with Med under KEMSA, so we can take the drugs to the facility. So we are waiting to see how this unfolds, because I don't even see how even it's going to be possible to separate. Probably what may happen during the 90-day is that if they were to buy, currently we have about 149,000 people who are accessing PrEP. So maybe every year we have about 1.7 million pregnancies expected. And out of those who may need pre-exposure prophylaxis are not many. So maybe they would say, we reduce the number of the amount of money we're giving for pre-exposure prophylaxis. But I don't see us being able to say, this is American PrEP, I can't give this one, I can't, and the other one. So we wait, all of us, to see. I must also admit that some of this information also is just coming and unfolding every day. And that is why I think the best thing we've done is to say, let's remain on that crisis management, but take it as an opportunity. As a country, do you really want an election in the US to affect what happens here in Kenya?
Oh, you have no choice. I mean,
I'm curious. In October of last year, I think, they committed 43 billion under PEPFAR to run until September 2025. There must have been an operational plan in place. How does this affect that?
So one of the things that you can see with that money that was committed, it was supposed to end in by 30th of September. So now we are midway. And because the financial year runs different from ours end in June, and that for PEPFAR was ending in September. So it means that whatever the commitment was is actually affecting 2 financial years, because it's affecting this year and also part of what we would have used for the first quarter of the next financial year. So we are also in a position where the one thing we can assure Kenyans is that we'll find the drugs will be there. And because we know for sure.
Yeah. Drugs will be there from where?
Because remember, as I said, the supply chain is not just currently with PEP.
But they're not locally produced.
So let me just say this. The current supply chain, the way we've managed it. So we are going to call down some of those, and that's what we are trying to look into. Where the government money, if it was going to be taken into May, as we wait for April, we bring all those drugs, we call them down, we say from the manufacturer. In Kenya, we have, for example, Universal Corporation Limited, they produce the what we call first-line ARVs. Mm-hmm. And we must also look at that as the next place that we must go. Because then if we for example, had an assured market for Universal, and also you are paying them promptly, it means that we can have that first line where more than almost 1.2 million people living with HIV are depending on that drug. And if it's just produced in Kikuyu, Jeff, what would happen is that we don't have to have 9 months of wait period. Mm. It means that we can have the drugs and spend less. Yes. Secondly, I must say that one of the things that we've done as a sector in HIV, in the HIV sector, was actually to look at why is it that our local manufacturers are not really driven to go and be approved by the World Health Organization and approved by other country system to produce ARVs. And you find that there are incentives that we must also start looking at. And those things include fuel, include access to markets as government, how we are bringing other countries together, because most public goods have very low margin, profit margin. So when you start an industry to manufacture ARV, for example, here in Kenya, you have to be guaranteed of the Kenyan market so that you can break even. So if you're not guaranteed of Kenyan market, maybe you add a bit with Uganda, add with another country, then you find that people struggle. So we have about, I think, 2 companies that had started the process, but now Universal has already been producing ARVs, not just for Kenya, even for Central Africa region. So that is something going for us.
Mm-hmm. And on commodities, I read, because you've talked about PrEP and the exceptions that have been put in place, the vulnerable groups of sex workers, same-sex, as well as drug users, right? But I also read that condoms, there's a provision for condoms, but for partners of pregnant and breastfeeding women. And
you're smiling like that.
No, she's nodding. I guess there's something she wants to add to that.
Yes. So I'm just saying that, which is truly what you're saying, the waiver is selecting populations that can benefit. But when you offer public service, the Constitution cannot allow you to start deciding, I'm giving this one, unless evidence shows you this is the most affected person. Mm. So in our case, for example, we know who needs condom. We know it's discordant couples, where one partner is living with HIV, another is negative. We know are those sex workers that we must ensure they have condoms. We know those men who have sex with men, we must ensure that they are also having condoms. The injecting drug users, you also must ensure they're having condoms. And then, of course, those high-risk partners, people, especially in the general population, who don't categorize themselves as sex workers yet, they have what you call serial monogamy. Because serial monogamy may not be driven by money, but because you have multiple partners. And that's what is happening to our young people, where, for example, you get multiple partners, but at a time. So again, those are high-risk group. So I don't think we are going to sit as public health experts and begin to say, this commodity is needed by this person or that person. What you must do is what probably, Jeff, we're arriving at, is where else can you get this funding? Mm. And let me tell you something. The infrastructure industry in this country is holding so much money for the HIV response, because there is a legal framework that says for every infrastructure project you do, as part of what you give back about 1% for prevention, and HIV is part of that prevention of infections. So what we'll be looking at is that where is the new money, even within this particular crisis, that can now come in and be more systematic, because when you open up a road and you're making some form of investment, then you're also opening sexual networks. So that is why you say that you must give up that community by investing in a prevention program.
Dr. Ari, real quick, PEPFAR was a game changer for 30 years, almost 30 years, right? It was a game changer. And now it looks like...
That's a big gap to fill.
It's a huge gap to fill.
And I'm curious, right? So you talked about, is it 20% is funded
28.
by... You said
the commodities.
Yes.
No, the commodities, 28%.
28%.
Yes.
Is funded by the US.
Yes.
So we're talking about the medication, the condoms, the test kits.
Yes.
28%.
Yes.
So like he says, that's a big,
It is
a
huge.
big gap.
It's huge, and that is why we are waiting for the 19th of April. But at the same time, not wait without options. What I must say is that I don't expect us to be able to take over the entire PEPFAR program.
Yeah.
And that is what we are not doing.
Yeah.
What we are doing now is to assess if we are today, the way the epidemic is, you have close to 1.4 million people living with HIV. You have 16,000 new HIV infection, most of them coming from young people. Okay. Today, where do you start?
Dr.
So what are you prioritizing?
Perhaps what's the best case scenario, worst case scenario?
Now, best case scenario, we secure drugs, we secure diagnostics, and then we secure minimal kind of staffing within the facilities. So worst case scenario is in the event that we don't put a house together, which I don't see us not doing, because this is not the first time we are hearing about this, and sleep anywhere near of the commodities. That would be our worst scenario. If, for example, today we sleep on the job and something happens in the supply chain and we are not ready to ensure that every person who needs drugs has the drugs, that would be the worst scenario. But I think with the lessons that have been learned over time, because we were here again, we were in a crisis again when we had the shipment issue, remember?
Yeah.
Jeff, we went to the extent of saying, let's even divide the container we had at that time. So I believe Kenyans are very innovative. And we said, if you had a 90 days dose, by the time Parliament was saying you can go buy these other drugs, we said you can't have the 90 dose, you're going to have 30 days. And people were a little bit uncomfortable with that direction. But if you're managing a crisis, when you're managing a crisis, you look for localized solution. The only solution you cannot get to is to let people panic. Someone has to sit on the driver's seat. You cannot let people panic because there's no need for panicking. If at least you know where you're getting the drugs, and the only thing you're dealing is with money.
So at this point in time, people are getting their 90-day dose?
Yes.
Dr. Ruth Laibon-Marshall, good to see you. Good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking to us.
We'll talk to you on April the 20th.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Day after the deadline. What do you say?
We'll call her.
Yes.
And we hope for the best. We really hope.
Always.
Maybe to just conclude, I must say that we look at every change of regime. If you look at from Bush time, we had PEPFAR program increasing. We had at the peak at Obama 1 year, then went down. Biden went down. Actually, Trump increased.
Round. Yes.
He increased the funding to Kenya. And Biden just reached a peak just below Obama. So you've seen the ups and downs. So what we are hoping for is not a zero. We are hoping that it's probably just something that takes us to where we want to go.
A little bump in the road.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Ori. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Asante sana. We're going to take a break right now. Come back. There's still some more news and sports as well.
Yep.
Keep tweeting. What are your thoughts? What are your comments on USAID and the way forward? At Koinange Jeff.
At O'Burrows at Citizen TV Kenya.
The hashtag is Sunday Live. Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back. It's also Citizen Planet as well.
Coming up.
Coming up.